The greatest and then some. Let's count them down.
You are Locked On A's, your daily Oakland A's podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Can you dig it? I knew that you could. Welcome. It's another episode of your favorite podcast, mine too, but then again, I'm biased. It's Locked On A's. My name's Wayne Coy, lifetime Oakland Athletics supporter and Bay Area media dude. And joining us for this episode and every one of our best of episodes is my eldest son, Ian Coy, hanging out in Iowa, also an A's fan for life. Hello, Mr. Ian.
Hey, what's going on? It is winter storming here, so glad to be inside on a podcast.
I was just going to ask you. I saw that Midwest was going through some weather, so you're having it there, huh? Oh, yep. Boy. Well, we'll keep you warm. We're gonna warm the cockles and subcockles of your heart today, talking A's baseball and the greatest of all time. And this episode is brought to you by our friends at Jace Medical. They want you to know all about the Jace case, which literally could save your life. The Jace case, antibiotics, a personal supply of 5 that'll treat 50-plus infections. You want to know about it? You want to get yours today? Well, do it. JaceMedical.com. And when you get there, use the code LOCKEDON. You get $20 off your order, just like it says there on the screen. That's at Jace, Jase, medical.com. Okay, it's Oakland A's top 3 by position. And where we last left it, I think we've gotten through 3 of these episodes. We've worked our way all the way from the infield, the outfield. Now we're going back into the infield or the outfield. These are the guys they like to call the Swiss Army knives of baseball. You can pretty much play them anywhere. And the A's have had some great utility players over the years, but only 3 make our list. Who are we starting with, Ian?
Going to start with actually the latest addition to the club of utility guys. Chad Pinder comes in at number 3.
Rad Chad, as we like to call him, because it rhymes.
I love Chad Pinder. A good, decent second baseman. Not terrible in the outfield either. Always a quality at bat. I know that gets overused in these contexts, but I mean that's what we scouted. That's what we looked for. The A's prioritize utility. You got to play multiple positions. We're trying to plug a million holes with 4 different guys. So that's kind of the point, right? Yeah. And Chad did it the best.
And played most of his career or all of his career in Oakland, I think. And I don't know about you, but I was a little sad to see him go. I felt like the A's should have maybe tried to talk him into hanging around for a little bit longer. And I know he just announced his retirement. So for Chad Pinder, where do you think he served us best? Do you think it was as an outfielder or an infielder?
I just think that the offense that we got out of second base throughout his tenure as a utility guy probably should have just plugged him in at second, because we got absolutely nothing from that position since Mark Ellis. Jed Lowry when he played there. Just it's been really, really tough offensively, and he was a plus in that column, and no other guys that play that position you can say that about.
That's right. And then you get to the point with these utility guys too, where you're like, well, have they gotten so valuable being in the lineup that you really want to consider them to maybe be everyday players at a certain position? But the best of the best all seem to be able to find their way into the lineup at some position. So even if you're not like the regular everyday second baseman, it's okay, because tomorrow you're playing third or tomorrow you're playing left. You know what I'm saying? So I think Chad Pinder did that probably better than any of the more current generation Oakland A's for sure. And again, really was kind of sad when I heard that he was retiring. I was like, he's too young to retire. How can he be retired? But I get it. There's only so many spots on the roster, and he certainly served us well in the green and gold. Good enough to be number 3 on our list of all-time utility men. Now, at number 2, we kind of had to almost flip a coin here. And by flipping a coin, I mean, we're looking at the old school A's versus the new school A's, and it was really tough to go 2 in a row from our current crop or more recent crop. So because of that, we're going to go back to those teams of the 80s that found themselves in a World Series 3 years in a row. Some say that without Tony Phillips, the A's don't win the World Series in 1989. What do you think about that, Ian?
I mean, if you look at that roster, it's pretty loaded top to bottom. So I don't really know about all that, but yeah, great utility player. I mean, we kind of plugged a couple of different second basemen in during that run. Mike Gallego was part of it as well, but Tony Phillips was there. Great plug and play piece. I don't know about key to the championship, but but definitely belongs on the list.
Certainly in that unsung hero department, right?
Yeah,
They're
absolutely.
not. I mean, how do you get the ink when you got Jose Canseco, Mark McGwire on your team? I mean, that's tough. Not to mention Dave Parker and on and on. So I get what you're saying.
Rookies of the year. How about that?
How about that? Exactly. Forgot about Walt Weiss, right?
Yeah.
So at number one, and sorry, Ted Kubiak, you came close to making the list. You didn't. We finish it off with number one, and again, a member of the A's of the more current generation. In fact, this is one of those instances where you can say that the John Fisher-owned Oakland A's could have spent the money to keep this guy in green and gold for his entire career, but instead we had to watch him go away. He's thrived for the most part wherever he's played, and he's now on, I think, his third team since leaving the A's. Talk a little bit about Mark Canha.
That was a guy that we picked up, I believe, as a Rule 5 pick from the Marlins, I want to say.
Sure was. Yep.
And man, as soon as he got there, he started hitting. You know, he was just big pop from that side, and we didn't really have a lot of guys from that side at that point that had pop. And he almost worked his way into nearly an everyday player. But if you needed him at first base, he got you. If you needed him at left field, he got you. He even played center quite a bit. So it had the wheels to do that. And great clubhouse guy, too. I remember one of the games we went to in 2018. It was like a 14th inning walk-off. I think, gosh, what was that? Anyway, can't remember the pitcher for Tampa. James Shields came in like the 14th inning. That was the year he was getting shelled. So they moved him to the bullpen, and he gave up the walk-off 14th inning hit when we're all on TV. Yeah, you know, it was pretty awesome. I got my 15 seconds of fame, but man, like it was just so cool, like looking at the dialogue between those guys, because you know it's Oakland Coliseum, right? You can like sit in the dugout if you want. I think they just let you just plop down right next to them, but this was like, I mean, Sean Manaea and Mark Canha, and that was when he was wearing the face mask. He was like in the baklava or whatever, balaclava, not baklava. I'm getting hungry now. But yeah, the balaclava phase where it was just like the eyes, you know.
Yeah, it was he and Sean Manaea both wearing the face mask. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it was like there was some juju. Like he was tearing the cover off the ball. He's like, I'm not taking this thing off until I stop hitting.
Yeah, he was a ninja. I think he played every single outfield position. I remember I did a charity event in Pleasanton, I think it was, or Danville. Okay, but it was in Danville, and it was for the Mike Piscotti and Stephen Piscotti's organization, ALS Cure. And I got my first chance to see Mark Canha out of uniform and just dressed like a normal dude. He's not a big guy. Like, you know, I don't know why, but on TV he looks a lot bigger, but up close and personal, standing next to him, I was like, you know, he's just a slight guy, but he grew up in the Bay Area, so there's a lot of love for that. And the other thing that I liked about him is he's a total foodie, you know, so if you wanted to know where the best restaurants were, you know, you go to that guy who is not only your best utility guy, but also best with a menu, and that was definitely Mark Canha. Played a lot of years in Oakland. I forgot how long he played there. It was 7 seasons, so
yeah.
Just, again, sad to see him go. And now he's playing. Who just signed him? I forget. Was it Detroit?
I should have definitely done the research on that one. No, I don't know where he just signed.
It just happened. And you'd think I'd remember. But he was with the Milwaukee Brewers last year. And then prior to that, of course, he was the New York Mets, right? Yep. and he just signed with somebody else. And I want to say it's the Tigers, but
That does sound right.
I could be wrong. We'll check that. We'll have our people get back to your people.
We'll fix it in post.
Yes, we'll fix it in post. And they'll do lunch. So listen, that kind of covers it again. No offense to Ted Kubiak, who, back in the day, he and Tony La Russa both did a great job of being able to play second base, shortstop, third base. They could pretty much fill in anywhere in the infield, and didn't hit much, but that didn't matter back then. So honorable mention. In fact, we'll put him in our graphic, so at least you'll be able to see the great Ted Kubiak, who went on to be a heck of a minor league manager. Yeah, we sure do. We love all those old days. But we'll wrap it there with our top three again to recap. At number 3, Chad Pinder. Number 2, Tony Phillips. And number 1, Mark Canagetta. What? In just a second, we're going to talk about pitching. And we'll do both right-handed and left-handed starters. And Lord knows we've had some great pitchers over the years in one of the better pitchers' parks, the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum. But before we get there, I know that it's true, because, girl, you do know it's true, that when it comes to sports and football, you almost want to say FanDuel as soon as I say those two things. In fact, you just did. You said, I bet he's going to say FanDuel. Well, you're right. It's playoff season. Playoffs? Yeah. I was rooting on a couple teams that didn't make it. But now that we know who the field is, it's amazing how quick you forget. And I said this to somebody yesterday. It's like, well, it matters until it doesn't. So you're in it, and then you're gone. So truthfully, the team that didn't make it in the regular season, didn't make the cut, in a week from now, they're just as they're on equal footing with whoever won the wild card or lost in the first round. It doesn't matter. Eventually, it ends up only being 2 teams standing. The question, of course, is who will those 2 teams be? And maybe the bigger question is, did you download the FanDuel app so you can be in the game? Not in the game, but in the game. Well, you can be. And check this out right now, special deal with FanDuel, a $5 money line bet for a new customer. If you pick the right team, you get the winner right, your $5 turns into $150 in bonus bets. Overs, unders, of course, all those crazy playoff season props, you got those. Bet what you feel, have some fun, get in the game with FanDuel. And how do you do that? Of course, you download the app. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, and you'll find everything you need to know there. But do it with FanDuel, official partner of the National Football League. Mr. Ian, let's talk pitching. Let's talk pitching. We're going to start with right-handers, and the A's have had a bunch of them. And I tell you, just ranking these guys is hard to do, but we're gonna give it a shot. So let's start with right-handed pitchers. Who do you have at number 3, Ian?
I'm going to go with a guy by the name of Tim Hudson, old Baldy out there. That was my guy. Got the little flavor saver down here. The guy was intimidating on the mound for being 6 foot and 175 pounds or whatever.
Soaking wet.
The scowl.
Yeah.
He's a mean dude. Yeah, I mean, I remember what year was it? 98 or 99? That year that we clinched on the very last day of the season. Tim Hudson on the mound was so pumped. Oh, he got us in there. He pitched us in there. And that was, of the big 3, you take your hats off to that guy. He was number 1 of 3.
Now, you were saying to me at one time that you felt like his statistics make him Hall of Fame worthy. Do you still think so?
In this era of baseball, I mean, if you don't put him in, who else are you going to put in? Nobody's getting to 300 wins anymore. Sorry. This isn't happening. So, yeah, every other metric that you could possibly measure other than wins, he fits the bill.
And I agree with you, because it is a day and age where most starters don't finish what they started. Used to be badge of honor, if you completed a game. It was like, it was expected of you. In fact, it was almost insulting if you had to go to the bullpen, right? But
yeah, absolutely.
those days are gone. We live in a specialization world, and you're right. I mean, if you're not, getting the unobtainable, I think, Maddox might have been like the last guy, right? I mean, once you get past that level there, I think that you're correct. 300 wins just isn't going to happen anymore. So what do you drop it to though? Is it 200? Is it 250? What's the number?
I don't know if there's a magic number. I just think it's 8 really, really good, best in the league or best. And if you're in the top 10 at your position in the league for 8 years or so, I mean, if you're mentioned in that, like you gotta give a little bit of leeway there. Otherwise, we're never going to vote anybody into the Hall of Fame again.
Right. No. We can be that guy. All right. Well, you mentioned Tim Hudson, otherwise known as the Bulldog, with his scowl. But I think the guy at number 2 has the best death stare that maybe this side of Bob Gibson that we've ever seen in baseball. I know I was intimidated, and he was on our team. So, like, I'm watching this guy pitch, and I'm like, boy, I'm scared for some reason, which is funny because if you ever meet him, he's a sweetheart of a guy. But let's talk about the guy. Yeah, he does. Let's talk about the man at number 2. What do you think about Dave Stewart?
Dave Stewart was the anchor of those pitching staffs on that dynasty that kind of never was. He was the guy I fell in love with baseball watching go out there. I think he won 24, 26 games or something that one year. That Bob Welch won 30 or whatever it was, but I think it was the same season actually, if I remember correctly. But yeah, man, Dave Stewart was a scary dude. I mean, wow.
What I love about his story is that he had good stuff, but he was never anybody's ace, and he kind of bounced around a little bit. Texas Rangers, LA Dodgers. Tony La Russa brings him in and says, "Look, I need you to work with us because we think you're one pitch away from being a dominant pitcher, and we're gonna talk to you about learning how to throw this thing called a forkball or split finger fastball, whatever you want to call it." But not only did they teach him how to throw it, but it became one of the best you've ever seen. And immediately, I mean literally immediately, within a season, he went from being somebody who was sort of in the conversation about being in the rotation to, like you said, the rock that everybody leaned on for 4 20-game seasons in a row. And did he ever win a Cy Young? I don't know that he did.
I want to say he finished second or third.
Yeah. That's what
very, very close.
That's what I'm thinking. But 88, 89, 90, and 91, I mean, just was dominant. And Smoke certainly since then has proven his worth, and also he gets the adoration, of course, from all of Athletics Nation. He's an Oakland A in every way, shape, and form. And as far as I'm concerned, in the aftermath of the Loma Prieta earthquake and what happened there with the World Series, he proved, I think, more than anybody, what that community really is all about. He stepped up. He was there every single day, assisting the first responders, digging out, unfortunately, people that lost their lives inside the rubble of the Cypress structure. And, he grew up in Oakland. And you hear that and you see that in the way he carries himself, the way he speaks about the community, the fine businessman that he is. He's somebody that every kid can look up to and be proud of, being able to say, look, he was a member of our team, and he's a worthy member of the Oakland A's Hall of Fame. But beyond that, just a great guy, period. Dave Stewart, quality citizen, and anybody that looks at him and says, I want my kid to grow up to be like him. You made a good choice there, I think. Dave Stewart, just a quality guy. And now we're going to be watching to see, because this guy, remember, has been not just a player, not just a coach, but also, has been a general manager, and now is leading the way of that whole contingency to bring Major League Baseball to Nashville, Tennessee. So we'll see if it happens. Now, of course, I wish it was Oakland. I wish he was, and I think he would be. I think if there was ever a moment where John Fisher really decided to take all of our advice and sell, I would love to see Dave Stewart be part of a group that would step up and say, yeah, we're gonna keep the A's in Oakland. That would be fantastic. But whether it's Nashville or it's Oakland, he's a guy, again, you're just going to be proud to have in your front office. And here's to you, number 34, one of a couple of number 34s. We'll talk about the other one in particular in a little bit. But hey, that number's retired twice. You see it in the Coliseum when you go. It's out there in the outfield up there, above Mark Davis's old hangout. Did you know Mark used to listen to Jimi Hendrix music up in Mount Davis while his dad was busy running the Raiders?
Well, he's all by himself up there. Nobody else anywhere near there.
Mark Davis's listening room. Yeah. Anyway, so at number 2 there you go with Dave Stewart. Number 3 again to recap Tim Hudson, and number 1. And as far as I'm concerned, there is no argument. As great as Dave Stewart was, there's no pitcher in Oakland A's history that you would rather give the ball to in a must-win situation than James Augustus Hunter from Hereford, North Carolina, number 27, Jim Catfish Hunter, Hall of Famer. And again, second time we're going to bring up Greg Maddux here, but Maddux, of course, known for his control. Catfish was one of those guys where he said, Ray Fosse could call for a pitch, say, I want it here. And funnily enough, Catfish would, yeah, exactly. Boom, right to the spot. Now, he threw strikes, and because of that, he had a propensity to give up the home run ball, okay? If you were going to find a knock on Catfish Hunter, that would probably be it. But it's funny how most of those ended up being solo shots that at the end of the day didn't really hurt his cause. He'd give up a solo homer, 500-foot, moon job in the first inning, and then he'd, throw a no-hitter the rest of the way. I mean, he was that strong of a starting pitcher. And, they weren't afraid to use him out of the bullpen if they had to in the World Series to win a game. And I know, Ian, unfortunately, you're too young to have ever watched him pitch in person, but you've seen him, I'm sure, in the videotapes and or the videos on YouTube. What do you think of Catfish? What's your takeaway when you watch him pitch?
Well, I just think, again, phenomenal control, always dependable. And he was also one of those guys that really, really didn't want to give the bat up either. Right. DH, nothing. I'm trying to hit, dude. And definitely one of the better hitting pitchers of the time on top of that. So, he'd help his own cause. It's he'd give up a home run, but then he'd go get one back. How many guys can you say that about? Not a lot.
Yeah, I think his lifetime batting average is somewhere around 235, 240, and
roughly what you'd get out of a DH.
Right.
Unless you're Edgar Martinez or something.
And the other thing, and it's even hard to quantify, but for lack of a better word, swagger, cool, I don't know what you call it, but just the image of him with that long hair, the thick stash.
Yeah. They got paid to wear the stash, but he made it his.
He did.
100%.
The big old chaw in his cheek, the chewing tobacco. Country boy from North Carolina, shot half of his foot off when he was a kid in a hunting accident. And, kudos to Charlie Finley for seeing beyond that, knowing that, okay, if we get him to a good doctor and we get that taken care of, we got ourselves an ace for years to come. And it wasn't long after that. He never pitched one inning of minor league baseball.
That's insane.
He went from high school to the major leagues. And when he debuted, it wasn't long after he debuted, just within 2 years, he threw a perfect game. First one in Oakland, our first season in Oakland, May of 1968 against the Twins. And there was so much more to come. Like I said, those 3 World Series in a row. He became baseball's first premier free agent, leaving the A's when Charlie Finley decided to defer some money and then forget that he was supposed to pay him. And they used that loophole to send him to the Yankees. And, he had a good year or so with the Yankees, but then his health issues caught up with him. He was diabetic. And then, of course, after that, the saddest part is that not only did he deal with the ravaging, after effects of being a diabetic, a type 1 diabetic, but besides that, obviously he had ALS, and he died of a combination of the two, the kidney failures and all that. And then, of course, Lou Gehrig's disease is serious, and unfortunately it took him away way too young. But I did get a chance to meet him when he was an A's player back in the 70s, and then I will never forget my opportunity to shake his hand in 1987 when he came back to Oakland and was part of an old-timers game right before the All-Star game at the Coliseum. So
cool.
Yeah, without a doubt, he's number one, and it's not even close on the list of all-time right-handed starting pitchers. So we'll go to the other side of the mound, and you talk about another great pitcher that could hit. We'll get to him in just a second. But before we do that, I do have to tell you about what's going on with Jace Medical. Jace, you know, I guess this is the deal. These days, you kind of, as much as you like to come to sports to be able to sort of escape from it all, it's the realities of life that sometimes slap you in the face. True story. About an hour ago, we got the alert that my brother-in-law, Ian's uncle Ted, in the hospital, and obviously we're praying right now that everything's going to be okay with him. But you kind of just never know. And if that's the case, you want to make sure that you're as prepared as you can be. According to the FDA, pharmacies are actually running out of antibiotics. Amoxicillin, something that used to be just very, very common, easy to get. Tough right now. We're in the middle of maybe one of the worst flu seasons in a long time. And that's scary. Well, there's no more hopeless or helpless feeling than whether it's a family member, like I just said with my brother-in-law, or maybe it's one of your kids, or in my case, my grandkids. Yes, my kids too, Ian. Okay. But all I'm saying is you don't want that to happen. So you want to make sure that they're taken care of, because the medication they need is literally just a couple of clicks away. It's called the Jace Case, and it's a pack of 5 different antibiotics that can treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, which I've never had one myself, but I can tell you what, my wife gets them, and Nancy tells me there's nothing worse. Respiratory infections are funky, sinusitis, skin infections, whatever it is. These are ready to go to help you through any of that. Visit jacemedical.com, complete your what they call physician encounter, and then they're going to be able to get you hooked up with the right doctor. It's all then, of course, sent directly to your house. Never been more important to be more prepared than right now. Go to jacemedical.com. Use that offer. That code is there for you right now. It's $20 off. Locked On is the offer code. jacemedical.com. Get there, get the savings, and make sure that you're taken care of when the moment strikes, because it will. Well, we're back, and we're counting them down. The top 3 at every position. This is our 4th episode already, and now we're talking pitching from the other side. Left-handed pitchers. Ian, you got number 3. Go ahead. I know who this guy is.
Ooh, left-handed pitchers.
Can he throw a curveball?
That man can throw a beautiful curveball. The old 12-6, the old funky drop the bottom out of the curveball. The
greatest
big hook.
greatest curve you've ever seen. If you were to put me on the spot, I'd say Burt Blyleven. Right behind that, this guy, Barry Zito. Barry Zito, a little bit of a character like most left-handers are, right?
Yeah. He basically didn't skip a beat when he stopped playing baseball, man. He's just like, let's just give me the guitar. Like, we're going to go play some gigs, and I'm going to stay out on the road, man. Like, dudes walking around barefoot in the dugout, like toe rings and stuff, man. Like, right. Barry Zito is the man. Like, he's just he's born in the wrong decade. Like, this dude is totally a flower child. And he's walking around like the shaggy hair and just, amazing curveball, great control, kind of had some home run issues as well. You were talking about Catfish earlier, and I gave up the long ball a little bit too. But man, he was definitely a valued member of that same big 3.
And they're not the big 3 without him. Absolutely. In fact, you got 2 lefties in that group. The other one didn't make our list, but he is definitely the runner-up, and that would be Mark Mulder, of course. Don't want to forget him. But when it comes to Barry Zito, I think 2 words really do come to mind, and they are Alyssa Milano. Okay. Let's move on to number 2 on our list of left-handers. Okay. This guy, I got to meet him at one of these reunion games just a couple of years ago. It was the 1973 reunion that they had in 2013. Got my jersey signed. And it's just a trip to be standing next to a dude that you were like Catfish Hunter. You needed to win a game. No coincidence. Every single one of the World Series that the A's were in the 70s, the game 1 starter, Kenny Holtzman, who the A's were able to get in a trade with the Chicago Cubs. And it's one of Finley was good at the trades, but Rick Monday to the Cubs for Ken Holtzman, I think, made the difference. And, it's hard to prove me wrong, because once Holtzman arrived, it wasn't just, oh, we're going to make the playoffs or we might make the playoffs. It was, we're going to win it all.
They got fleeced.
Yes, I think so. I mean, no offense to Mr. Monday, but so Holtzy, you got a no-hitter in there, of course. You got a very low ERA, and you were talking about Catfish being able to swing the bat. I mean, go back and watch those World Series highlights films. There's Ken Holtzman with a double. There's Ken Holtzman with a home run. There's Ken Holtzman sliding into home plate to score a go-ahead run in a World Series game. I mean, wearing the jacket, that the pitchers all wore when they got on base. And just a real cool delivery, and always seemed to look, both he and Joe Rudy, by the way, always looked like they just got out of the shower. They had that sort of wet look happening. And since then, nobody's been able to rock that except a particular shortstop who played on the other side of the bay. Brandon Crawford brought back the I just took a shower look.
It was a Jerry curl, man.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. I don't think Holtzman's was product. I think it was pure sweat. But it's funny because he's put on a pound or two since his playing days. He was such a thin guy as a baseball player, and now you see him as kind of an older retired guy, and you're like, "Woo, I wouldn't want to be like across the line from Ken playing some football. He's a big dude, man." Anyway, so that's Kenny Holtzman, number 2. Number 1, without debate. Name me another left-handed pitcher, forget the A's, but for anybody who's ever been the most valuable player, Cy Young Award winner same year, also on the cover of Newsweek and Sports Illustrated and Time, and increased the attendance at not just the home games, but the games on the road by an average of 30% every time he pitched. 1971 was the year of Vida Blue, and now he had great seasons after that. But that was the year for sure, 24-8. Started the All-Star game. Just, it's like a dream come true for the kid from Mansfield, Louisiana. And you know what? Played with a joy and just, I don't know what you call it, just love for the game, just exuberance. He used to, take, when the other guys would be stretching, he was a high school quarterback. So he'd be out in the outfield pretending he was the quarterback, but with a baseball in his hand and throwing passes to his second baseman, I mean, it's just fun to watch. And I forget just sort of how lucky I was to be a kid growing up with those teams. But I think, Ian, you can relate because you kind of had those late 80s, early 90s A's that were, in their prime when you were coming up. And you just didn't really have the big lefty starter on that team, that the teams in the 70s had. I mean, they just didn't. And so as much as I want to be able to represent, it was all about Bob Welch, Mike Moore, and Dave Stewart. You had the 3 big right-handers, right? So anyway, Vida Blue, and we certainly are sad that he's gone because you just saw him, I mean, literally at the, the reunion that they had with that 73 team. And and then
I got the chance to meet him a couple of times in Burlington. That's where I'm at. As we said before, Burlington, Iowa. Played for the Burlington Bees here.
Yes,
and
he did.
Come back about once every 4 or 5 years. And I always circle that date on the calendar when Vida Blue was coming. Yeah. And when I was about 12, 13 years old, I went up to him in the box and asked him if he could sign a baseball. And of course, I'm wearing A's gear. So he's in. He's like, no problem, kiddo. Boom. Here you go. And I don't even know where the ball is. That's how much of a shame is that?
You got to find that. You got to find that. Well, Vida Blue, certainly one of the greats. And like I said, we miss him so much. And know this, he is probably the only Major League Baseball player that can say he hit on my sister and almost got a date out of it. Yeah. Your Auntie April was working at Smith's in downtown Oakland, and Vida came in to do some business, and he almost did some business. But listen, April's always been true to your Uncle Ted, even back then. So Vida didn't get his date, but I think she thought about it for a minute. Why wouldn't you?
I mean,
yeah.
Sorry, Uncle Ted.
Sorry, but it's Vida Blue, Yeah, I would have made the choice for her if I would have been given the opportunity. Thanks for being around. This has been episode number 4. Of course, we're back with number 5, and that's going to be left-handed and right-handed relief pitchers. And again, we've had we've had Hall of Famers there coming out of the bullpen, so we'll be talking about them. And managers, too. Yeah, we've even got some Hall of Fame managers that we're going to talk about. That'll be in our next episode as we rank the best of the best to ever play for the Oakland A's. Don't forget to check us out on our brand new 24/365 streaming sports network. It's called Locked On Sports Today. We're going to send you over there right now. Just our way of saying thanks for being here, and we do thank you. Until our next episode, he's Ian Coy. I'm Wayne Coy, and you keep on swinging.